Hi everyone, it's Matt Greer here from Navigate IFA and I'm joined by Jonny Bloomfield. Hi Johnny.
Hi Matt, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, all well tonight. Yeah, good. Looking forward to this
Good.
chat we're gonna have.
Yeah, good. Just to set the scene about why we're having this chat, Johnny and I met at one of his networking events. Johnny runs a fantastic event in Belfast called Networking, and it's a sort of a walk around Stormont. Johnny, do you want to explain a bit about networking, how it started, why you run it, and who's it
Yeah,
for?
yeah. I guess so I'm based very close to the beautiful grounds of Storm Estate, and during lockdown and COVID, and whenever we started to um meet up again and started doing business face to face, I really encouraged all my clients, my meetings to happen outdoors. So instead of choosing a coffee shop or booking a meeting room somewhere, I was always telling people to meet me at the front gates of Stormont, and we would do our meeting, having a bit of a wander around the grounds and taking in the beautiful scenery and seeing the sights and smells of nature. So it was just something that kind of evolved from there. And one of my meetings one day said, "Oh, you ever thought about doing more of this and having more people join you?" And I said, "Oh, that sounds like networking." And they got really intrigued by, "Well, what do you mean by networking?" "Oh, I've heard this term, networking. It's a kind of an alternative or a new approach to networking where, traditionally a network, they go to a building somewhere and they sit down and they listen to a presentation and um, maybe get a chance to um, sort of have a swap a few business cards over a bacon buddy or something. It seems to always be a traditional way to do that, and um, I feel this is a much more open way. It's a different way of doing things, and you get to make deeper connections when you're on the network. So we wander around the grounds. I give everyone opportunity to speak to everybody as in a spotlight session in terms of the group. Whoever wants to do a group address, then they get a minute or two to explain who they are, what their business is, and then we go for a walk. We pair up or go in threes, and you get a good conversation with someone for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we stop, bring the group together, maybe do another spotlight session or do a group chat about a particular topic that's of the moment, and then we mix up again, and when we go off with a new partner for 10 or 15 minutes, all around a kind of set route that I've designed around Stormont. And then we at the end we'll kind of, those that can stay about can we can all have coffee and
Yeah.
something together. So yeah, well, I said that it happens every final Friday of the month, and we meet at 10 a.m. at the front gates of Stormont. If anyone knows that, um, there's a couple of yellow benches there, which is where we congregate, and then roughly about 10 past, quarter past 10, we head off on a trek, and okay, the group's been brilliant. It's grown in number. There's so many new people arriving every single month, which is absolutely wonderful. And I've made connections like this one we've got, like we're doing right now. And
Yeah.
so things have evolved from it. And so if it's working for me and for others, then I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, like you said, it's very different to your traditional networking event, which is in a hotel or in a conference room or
Yeah,
something where you're sitting down having coffee, eating pastries, and there's a presentation by someone. And that's actually what intrigued me about it and why I went to my first networking a few months ago was because it was so different and because it was active and you get out into the fresh air and talk to different people. So I think it's brilliant, and I think the structure around it's really good about having people sort of set places where you stop across the walk, where you stop and have a little talk about what it is that you do. And at the last one we had Jason Lear do a talk about AI, and it was good. So, and I think that's a great thing as well to encourage members of the group to be able to share what it is that they're working on. It's a great platform, and sort of long may it continue.
yeah,
Um, but I suppose after the networking event that I went on, the first one, we both got chatting, and obviously I'm a financial planner, you're a health coach, and there is sort of similarities in what we do. We both work with private clients. We both have a client bank, and in terms of health, finances play a big part for me in my overall health and well-being. And there's enough studies now these days to know that not taking care of yourself financially can cause issues with your health and well-being. So I guess we started talking about that, and we took it a bit further and thought, well, why don't we have a sort of a chat, and we can try and use our expertise to try and answer some questions for people that are maybe either struggling with their health and well-being or financial well-being, or maybe they're not struggling and they just want to take sort of more control over what it is that they're doing. So the idea of today really is just we're going to sort of ask each other some questions, some frequently asked questions, if you like. We've put a theme around it. So the theme for today's podcast is how to live well for longer. We're going to focus on longevity, whether or not that's how can you live longer and be healthy for longer, or how can you make sure that you've saved or invested enough money so that while you are living longer, you have enough money to be able to enjoy life as well. So without further ado, let's crack on. So the first things first, Jonny, what does a health coach do?
Oh, right. So yeah, my primary role is as a health coach. So I work to improve the physical, mental, and emotional well-being, mainly of corporate executives, and I help them move better, eat better, sleep better, and ultimately help them manage the stresses and strains of their daily lives, and then I keep them functioning at a high performance level. My background, you see, is in high performance. I qualified through a route of sports science and exercise physiology, and I started my career back in 2004 as a fitness coach for Ulster Rugby, and then from there I evolved into becoming a sports physiologist for the Sports Institute at Northern Ireland, and that then brought me to a really exciting role, becoming the first sports scientist for the English rugby team, and that really brought me into a very high level role of high performance on a world stage, and that also brought me into about a lot of connections in other professional sports, and I started working also as a consultant in the areas of fatigue and fitness for quite a number of Premier League sides as well, and also had a spell of working with with Darren Clark, our very own Darren Clark, when he was the Open champion. So that was an interesting journey into the world of golf. But so that's kind of what I primarily do, and a wee bit of the journey I've got that's taken me towards doing that.
So day to day, then, if you're working with a client, what does a client relationship look like for you? What, sort of on a month by month basis or day by day basis?
Well, really, what I do is I work with people for a year at least, and it kind of it involves three main aspects. So it's making assessments. So we want to gather data. I'm a scientist. I want to know where things stand and how things are progressing. So data, everything for me is quite data driven. Scientific approach, evidence-based practice is central to the work that I do, and then the second strand of it is education. So I provide my clients with sort of cutting edge research information, latest research in certain areas like stress management or sleep, rest, recovery, diet and movement. And basically, so I build their knowledge, I build their skills, I give them tools and confidence that they can self-manage their abilities to look after their own stresses, sleep better, eat better, move more, and ultimately help them function at high performance levels and reach whatever life goals that they've set for themselves.
Amazing.
So yeah,
that's
what
sort of what? No, that sounds amazing. And what sort of feedback do you get from clients about the process?
Yes. So it has to be a good fit. So I don't just work with anybody. I work with people that I feel that will be a good match, will be a good fit. I always have a chemistry session before we start any client coaching engagement, and if I feel that there's a person here that's willing to kind of invest their time, their effort, their money into working with me, and I feel that there's a good connection, that I'm going to have a good rapport, that I can help them make progress. They're coachable. They're going to learn. They're going to act and do upon the things that I'm advising them. Then that's a good match. Now, I was with a client yesterday, and I am not making this up, but I said to him, it was an online client that I'd been working with for about a year, and actually we met up. He was in Belfast for the first time for a long time. So we had lunch together, and I asked him, um, how how have things been? Like, how have you enjoyed working with me? And he said, Jonny, being honest, it's been life changing. So that was
Amazing.
really positive for me to hear. How sometimes I don't feel I make that much of a difference, because I kind of only see a part of a person's life, and to be told that meant a lot to me yesterday.
Yeah,
Knowing what the challenges this person's had and how we've worked together to overcome them, and to hear him tell me that was special.
amazing. Yeah, amazing. That's why you do the job, isn't it? To get feedback like that and make the changes to people's lives that you can make. So I suppose I should introduce what I do. So I'm Matt. I'm a financial planner. I work for a company called Navigate IFA. They're based in East Belfast, just beside the Strand Cinema on the Hollywood Road. So I'm a financial planner, which effectively means I help people plan for the future. And that could be short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. Financial planning is really important, and it's something that's severely lacking in our industry. There's a stigma around financial advice where it's mostly product-led, where financial advisors would historically be the sort of salespeople that would sell you pensions, investments, and get paid a commission for doing so. These days, thankfully, the industry has evolved past that in the most part. And there's a big focus now on financial planning, and effectively it's helping clients answer the questions that they've got about their own life. So I'll sit with clients and help them work out what it is that they're aiming for in the short, medium, and long term. And most of my clients would be sort of maybe in their late 30s, 40s. They've probably got young families, busy jobs, or maybe they run their own business. And they have goals. Everyone's got things that are important to them in life, and it's hard to look at retirement, for example. Everyone wants to retire or stop work at some point, but there's so much that'll happen to these people in their lives between now and then that they need to be prepared to, especially financially, to deal with those things. So I can help people set the scene and help them answer the questions and put monetary amounts towards them. So if someone is telling me that they want to help put their children through university, or they want to save money to give their child a deposit, or they want to go on a once in a lifetime trip across the world, I can work out how much they need to save and what sort of investment they will need to make and what level of returns they will need to get in order to achieve those goals. So it's very goals driven. It's sort of focused on the client and what life it is that they want to live. And yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of overlap there. We're interested in our clients' goals, and working out a plan to help them, yeah, help them get there. So
Yeah,
that's good.
for me, the best feedback I could get is similar to what you've got. The sort of feeling you get whenever you're able to see clients achieve their goals is amazing. So for example, I would have a client that's maybe they come in and they're tired of work. It's been very stressful, and they want to know when they can retire or how they can retire. And I'm able to give them the sort of certainty to know that if they keep doing what they're doing, or if they make a few tweaks and a few changes, this is when they're able to do so comfortably. And
Mm.
throughout my career, I've been able to help clients retire up to 5 years earlier, where maybe they've come in at 50 and they thought they were going to have to work till 65. But after having a chat and making a few tweaks and actually setting out and visualizing what it is that they want, you're able to put a more realistic plan in place to help them retire earlier and live a happier life for longer. So that's one element of it. And the other element is helping clients spend their money. Which sounds like a counterintuitive thing for someone who's meant to be helping clients accumulate money. The spending stage is really, really important for clients as well. How can you retire and live a fulfilling life? And So I've got some loads of good examples of this, but one example would be a client recently wanted to help their daughter with a house deposit, and initially they thought, maybe I could give her £10,000, and £10,000 would go a long way to helping her secure a deposit. Whenever we use our software, we can run through loads of different scenarios, and we looked at the scenario of what if you gifted her £50,000? What difference would that make to your financial plans? Would that impact your retirement? Would that impact the amount that you can spend? And in this scenario, it didn't make a difference. That meant that the client could comfortably gift his daughter 5 times more than what he thought he could, and still be okay and still live the life that he wanted to do. And the look on the client's face was just, he was so happy, and he knew what a big difference he would be able to make to his daughter. So that's kind of why I do what I do, is to help clients, achieve those kind of things in their life. It gives me really good joy and job satisfaction.
Brilliant. I mean, yeah, that's definitely life changing for those people that you have affected. So
Yeah, exactly. And so getting on, I suppose, to the main point of the podcast, or the theme, if you like, of this episode, is how to live well for longer. So we're focusing on longevity, and longevity plays a big part. People are living longer and longer, but as well as that, people are getting sick a lot more. Rates of cancer are 1 in 2 pretty much nowadays. Other ailments and things, long-term illnesses and diseases are sort of more prevalent than they maybe would have been 30, 40, 50 years ago. So while people are living longer, they're maybe not getting the most out of life that they could. Another thing that I'm seeing within my industry is the sort of decline of final salary pensions. So a final salary pension would have been the norm 30, 40 years ago, where you work your whole life and you retire and your company pays you a pension for the rest of your lives. Those don't really exist anymore unless you're in the public sector. So unless you're a civil servant or a teacher, really, or in the NHS. So for the most part, people who work in the private sector are going to be reliant on their own savings to get them through retirement. There is help from the state, with the state pension being almost or just over £10,000 a year. But with the cost of living increases, it's very difficult for even a couple who are both on a state pension to get by these days. So longevity is something that's really important for me, for my clients, is how can we get them to retirement age, but also how can we help them make their money last longer while still being able to live a good life. So the plan really is I'm going to ask Jonny a few questions about longevity. He's going to ask me a few questions. We'll kind of go through it and see if we can kind of unpick some things and give some sort of pearls of wisdom of how you can improve your longevity, both from a health and a financial point of view. So Jonny, take it away. So if someone comes to you and they want to improve their health, how can someone realistically live till age 100 and be healthy?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's biologically that's very feasible. There's many more centenarians in the world and in the UK than there's ever been in the past. As you've mentioned there, people are living longer. We have more knowledge, we have better healthcare, we have just generally an aging population, and many of us can achieve that life to 100 or and beyond, really. I suppose the question is, do you want to? That's maybe a conversation that you might want to pick up on, but but look, there's it's kind of relevant to me and to my family this year, because we celebrated my grandmother's 100th birthday back in just a few months ago there.
Wow.
And and she is quite a remarkable lady. She has had 2 older sisters who unfortunately have passed away, but both her elder sisters made the age of 100. So there must be strong genes, maybe on the female side of my family, but maybe it'll, if I have the right lifestyle, I can get somewhere close to that hopefully one day. But I when she was edging towards her 100th birthday, I did I sat down with her and asked her a few questions about, well, what does it take it's all simple stuff, really. You know, it's the very first thing she kind of gave me 8 points, and the first one was I could keep moving.
Yeah.
She's probably thinking more like in the years leading up to 100, but I think some of the things that she's mentioned here are relevant from really, you know, midlife. The importance maybe increases from midlife and beyond, but keeping moving. So she would say, you know, she would be out doing plenty of gardening, lots of walking. She rarely sits still for long periods. She does chair exercises that she's been encouraged to do, and and even whenever, you know, she is quite mobile, but she would have a walking stick, and so she doesn't have any shame about, you know, using her stick. But so I think I think that tells us if you need help, you know, don't be shy of taking it. Her second point was drink plenty of water and plenty of tea and only a little bit of alcohol now and again, really. Thirdly was about keeping your brain active. She does lots of knitting, sewing, reading, jigsaws, but she keeps interested in something always, and she keeps her memory active as well. Fourthly, then she's talking about connections. So she connects with lots of people. She's always on the phone. She's always talking. She makes an effort to talk to someone every day. She told me, she deliberately phones a friend, or she's surrounded with people who care. Now, her and her two elder sisters who made made it to centenaries, all the one thing that they all three of them have in common is that they were very much surrounded by family. So like the families live next door, or my mother and father live, their back gardens join my grandmother's back gardens, so that they're extremely close by. And then when she was able to take care of them, she had pets as well. So pets were good company, and she was when she was capable of looking after them. Fifthly, she talked about regularity, routines, keeping good sleep-wake times. So go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, do that every day, do it all the time. And that's something that I strongly promote to my clients. It's all about getting that body clock in sync, and keeping a rhythmicity to your biology. And that biology doesn't really distinguish whether it's a work day or a weekend day. You know, we got to keep rhythmicity, and that looks after our hormones and our appetite and our mood states. So very, very important. Next on the list was she was eat little and often was her tactic, but eat slowly. And eating slowly is a fantastic tactic for us to manage weight. So eating mindfully and slowly is very strongly promoted in dietetics at the moment, because once you have kind of like this style of eating called intuitive eating, where you kind of listening to your body while you eat, you kind of sense the feelings of fullness, and you you know, you have an appreciation of what you're eating and the quality of that food. And so, but she says plenty of veg, lots of berries, salads in summer, porridge and honey in the mornings, all that kind of stuff. She actually looks after her gut microbiome incredibly well. She probably doesn't realize that. And she only takes little amounts of sugar. She's not a huge, she's not a person who hugely would indulge in treats. I've noticed that. And nearly at the end of the list, she was talking about don't worry, keep smiling. So she's very good at stress management. She says no problem gets fixed by worrying. Have a strong faith, live for today, and let tomorrow take care of itself is one of her mottos. And then lastly on the list was be a helpful person. Do what you can for others. Smile at a stranger, because it could change and alter their day, and try and do a good turn. So even on her birthday, or on her birthday, she didn't want any gifts, but she just wanted donations for 2 charities that she has an interest in. She's not really connected to, but the Northern Ireland Air Ambulance flies over her house en route to the Royal Victoria, so she sees that quite regularly, and she thinks they do wonderful work. I'm going to support that. And then there was an animal sanctuary as well that she wanted to support. But I think notably, my final point here about my grandmother is that notably she seems to cover all the 5 ways to well-being that are promoted. So connection, being active, taking notice, keeping learning, and giving. So I think she's a great example of how to have healthy aging, taking care of yourself by
Yeah.
concentrate or spreading all your efforts across those 5 areas of well-being.
That's really interesting. She sounds like an amazing woman. I love the point about the not worrying, because she's totally right. There is no problem on earth that can be solved by worrying, and it'll just have an impact on your stress and well-being. So she's bang on with that.
Yeah.
My grandfather is 100 in
Oh,
February. Fingers
okay.
crossed. So he pretty much has the same sort of lifestyle as your grandmother. He's very social. He's always like your grandma, always on the phone, plenty of visitors. He's still the sort of life and soul of any room that he's in. And yeah, he's pretty much everything that you said, I think, is something that he's very, very similar, especially around helping others, being helpful, not worrying, and being social. I think the social bit's a big one. Whether like you said, that's with family or friends, or having another community like a charity or a church or something. I think the social element can't be overlooked for your overall health and well-being.
Entirely. So if we could take a kind of a global perspective on this, there are 5 hotbeds of the world where they have the highest concentration of centenarians. They're known as
Is
the
that the
blue
blue
zones.
zones?
Yeah, yeah, it's the blue zones. So there's 5 of them. So there's Icaria in Greece, there's Sardinia in Italy, there's the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and then there's the Okinawa region of Japan. Japan of I think the second highest life expectancy in the world of I think men are going to live to about 82 on average, and women live to 88 on average. So it's about a decade more than what you'd expect in the UK. And then there's a community in California called Loma Linda where they're very kind of strict vegetarians. But these 5 blue zones have been studied in quite a lot of depth, and they look at the commonalities across them, and they're very similar to what we've been describing ourselves here. So most of those people all mostly eat plants as the main bulk of their diet. They tend to be low on beef and dairy, and quite regular on things like tea. You know, Japan would have a lot of green tea, and
Yeah.
in Mediterranean they would have regular glasses of red wine as well. Plenty of sunshine, though. But
Yeah.
just what you said there was all about life purpose, community. There are central components to each of these communities. They're also very active. They walk every day, but they kind of have a simplicity to their lives. They're simple health, simple ways to be happy, and yeah, they're they seem to live and prosper for long periods of time. Interestingly, like we were talking earlier on there about retirement and retiring early, the Okinawas, and if I can pronounce that in the Japanese, don't have a word for retirement, and they don't retire. The
What?
centenarians will still be working in the fields and picking berries and doing being active, so they don't kind of get to a point where they remove themselves from a society. They stay integrated the whole way
Yeah.
through. There's no word, there's no term for retirement.
That's amazing. That is something that is really important to clients of mine. Is I actually had it with my own dad. Is he retired? He was a head teacher of a primary school, high stress job. He retired, I think, before he was 60. I think he was 59, something like that. Fully stopped, but 6 months later he was back doing
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Because it just didn't agree with him and it wasn't the right thing to do. And he sort of then slowly reversed his way out of work rather than a full stop. Like you said, there's enough studies these days to show that a full stop in working has an actual detrimental effect to you than sort of reversing or slowly leaving the workforce.
yeah. I think purpose is key there. I mean, if you've spent your life, particularly if you've done one job for 40 years or more,
Yeah,
then to simply turn that off is well, it's rather scary. And
it can be catastrophic.
unless you have a purposeful alternative to to get, ignite your passion and to give you that and hit those 5 areas of well-being, connection, being active, taking notice, keeping learning, giving, then you could quickly come unstuck from a health perspective, if from a physical and particularly a mental cognitive perspective, if you simply just stop doing what
Yeah,
has been your life for
yeah. And
so
that
long.
I suppose it kind of leads me sort of to my next question. The last time we were talking, you had mentioned something to me about deep health. You just
Yeah.
explain that for us and explain what
Okay.
deep health is.
I'll do it quite quickly. So really, deep health's taken a whole person, whole life perspective over somebody. So you don't just simply go to a coach like me just to kind of get fitter, or to deal with one aspect, because all all different aspects of health are connected. So deep health, there's a model that looks at 6 aspects of deep health. So physical being one of the obvious ones, but that's having the physical capacity to function and be of good body, and yes, be able to do daily things. But then there's the mental cognitive aspects as well. So how we think, how we learn, how we remember. So that's very important. Of course, a lot of in recent years, a lot of attention has been drawn to mental health and looking after our mental health and well-being, but and hand in hand with that is emotional health. So generally how we feel every day, our moods, how are we handling our emotions, how are we regulating ourselves, how are we kind of learning from experiences in life and growing from that. So then we have our kind of, so I suppose those three are quite obvious, but then there's 3 more. Like there's the purpose part of life. So some people call it existential health, and that's
Mhm.
just having a deeper connection and why. So we've just touched on that, as about retirement and having really strong purpose, sort of spiritual health or purpose in life that gives us a reason to get out of bed in the morning and feel that
Yeah.
we're part of a bigger picture, and we're doing purposeful things with our days, and that would obviously link to our social health. So are we connecting with others? Are we interacting well with others? Have we got that sense of belonging to a community? Are we providing a community with our time, money, and talent? Do we feel respected in our community? Are we seen as providing value? And are we supporting and giving ourselves to others? And then kind of lastly on the list is your environmental health. So it's that feeling of being safe and secure in the place that you're in, feeling, being free from likes of toxins, and also just having, good support from our surroundings. We talked about networking earlier on. So are you,
Mhm.
how accessible is nature to you? How accessible is, healthy food, groceries, and so on. So our health can be incredibly influenced by our environment. That's known as a social determinants of health. So yes, we need to take, when you're working with somebody, you got to take in all the aspects, and that's we bundle these all together, and we call this deep health. So you can't just fix one area or work on one area. One area affects all others. So it's important to take that wider perspective of where someone's at.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The environment one is particularly interesting as well, especially with, you know, people working a lot more potentially than they would have done. Especially a lot of your clients who would maybe work, and my clients as
Mm.
well, would work a lot and potentially don't have time to make nutritious meals. They don't have time to go take a walk and get out in nature because they're so busy maybe running a business and keeping that afloat. Or whether it's just the sort of everyday stresses of family life. You have to be conscious with your decisions on these things. I was talking to you before we started recording about I'm trying to get into more running. I'm trying to increase the amount of miles that I'm running every month. And time with a young family is time is a real commodity. And it's something that I purposely have to make time for. And And luckily my partner's understanding, and she appreciates the sort of importance of physical health as well. So if I nip off to go for a run for an hour, that's fine. You know, it's not a big deal, but it is difficult increasingly more these days to find time to do things, and especially to cook nutritious meals and exercise.
Yeah, well, I think what's really important is to remember that we're not looking for perfection. You know,
Yeah.
in terms of health, it's actually unhealthy to aim for perfection. It's just little progresses here and there. It's acceptance of your situation. If you've really got very little time, then you have to think, well, doing anything towards preserving my health, and my well-being, doing any small action towards that is a positive. Is something worthwhile doing. And you know, it's like how to build a snowman. You start off by getting a very small snowball and start it moving, and suddenly it can gather lots of snow quite quickly, actually. So
Good
yeah,
analogy.
it's really trying to make sure that you know, you place value in your health. There's no point in saying I'll put my health to one side until I'm older, until I've got more time, because
Yeah.
life will never there will never be a perfect moment in life. There'll never be a perfect phase where you'll have everything managed. You know, we just have to accept that life will continually throw things to do at us. New challenges will always come along. So putting your any of those aspects of health or deep health that I mentioned just to one side and say I'll deal with that later is something we want to certainly avoid. We want to like say, well, I maybe can't, you know, do something extravagant like run a marathon. It takes lots of time and energy and effort and so on to prepare and then run a marathon, and that's maybe just not realistic whenever you've got a young family and there is no time to be able to achieve that or train for that. So instead of doing that, what about something much smaller? Or would you be motivated by a goal of trying to do 3 runs a week, or get out walking on every day for 10 minutes? So there's always something that you can be doing. You start off that snowball and start let it roll, and then see where it can go.
Yeah. I think that's really important, because I think sometimes people can be too busy focused on the bigger picture. And like you said, around even like you could even say as low as a 5K or a park run or something. If you've never ran before and you think, oh, I could never run that distance, well, you never are going to then, because you're too focused on the end. Whereas, like you said with the snowman, you just have to start and do something, and
Yeah.
yeah, you start
Well,
from there.
a good example is I know I should stretch, and I've over the years I haven't done enough of it, and I've always felt guilty for it. But I've found if I can do, if I started getting into a habit of doing 10 minutes before my bedtime routine started, so it almost like it starts my bedtime routine as a 10-minute stretch. So I sort of create a little sequence of movements that I would do, and I just rehearse those, and now it's become you know, part of the routine. So across a year, I did 50 hours of stretching.
Yeah,
By doing 10 minutes, you know, most nights of the week. And it's
it adds
simple.
up.
And
Yeah,
it's
it really adds up.
I have got time for that. And I can fit something like that in. And it is actually helpful for me to unwind and rest and go to bed and get good sleep. So there's a knock-on benefit from doing so. So yeah, there's always moments in time, and every little small thing is worthwhile doing, is what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get across.
and that sort of adds into my work as well, where people think, oh, I'm never going to be able to retire. I'm never going to have saved enough money to send my kids to university. I'm never going to have the money to do these kind of things. When really, if you start and save meaningfully, monthly savings add up. And if you saved 100 or 200 pounds a month, that adds up over time. That adds up over
Yes.
months and years. And especially if the younger you know, the younger you can start, the better. But just because you're older doesn't mean it's too late. That is another thing I would get, was maybe some people would come to me when they're, say, 50, and they believe that they're too late to start, so they just don't. And that's the sort of worst thing that you can do. And I suppose that links into people's health as well, is that people get so sort of stuck up in thinking that oh, it's too late for me to start exercising. It's too late for me to start cycling or start running. I'm too old to start doing that. It's never too old. You're never too late to do these things.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. So, so what would be, we've been talking about living a long life, and but what would be some of the risks of sort of your finances, how to finance to live to that age? I mean, what would need to be thinking about in midlife to fund that?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a good question. It's one of the major risks in financial planning is something called longevity risk. It's effectively no one knows when they're going to die. But the risk in terms of longevity risk, the risk to clients and to sort of normal people, is that they outlive their savings. They run out of money before they pass away. Or for me, there's sort of two things that can happen to you. Either you're going to have enough money for the rest of your days, or you're going to have too little and you're going to have to compromise your lifestyle and not be able to do the things that you want to do. Or arguably even worse is that you die with too much money. It sounds funny because you would think, oh, that's a good thing. I've had plenty of money. But for me, someone that dies with too much money, there's sort of two elements of that that's a problem. And the first one is that they've not lived the life that they could have done, and maybe they've not enjoyed the things that they could have enjoyed, to a greater extent. I always try when I'm working with clients to find out what's important to them and to find out, what it is that really gets them going. What do they love doing? And for some people that's holidays and they've got a bucket list of places they want to travel to. And for other people, it's family is most important to them, and helping their kids and seeing their grandkids and everything like that is the sort of most important thing. And everyone's got sort of different priorities, but the one thing you can be sure about is that if you don't spend your money during your lifetime, then your kids will. And for me, longevity risk means not having enough money to live the life that you wanted to live, or having too much and not spending it. But I suppose in terms of the sort of the major impact of not having enough money and not putting enough in place so that you can enjoy your later life, that's a major financial stress for a lot of people, especially when they approach middle age and further. You start to get the impending doom of, I'm never going to be able to stop work. I'm going to be working into my 70s. And not to say there's anything wrong with that. If you enjoy that and you get purpose out of it and it's something that's important to you, that's a different story. What I'm talking about is the people that don't enjoy their jobs and they don't get purpose from their jobs, and the only reason they're working it is because they need a paycheck at the end of the month. And to me, arguably, that's a huge impact on people's health and well-being, both physical and mental. There's a good saying which says that you need to have enough money when you're retired to not have to get out of bed in the morning, but enough purpose to get you up. So for me, retirement's all about, you've got enough money that you don't need to worry about keeping a roof over your head, enjoying life, but you also still have the purpose that you have something that will get you up and get you to do things. But I suppose financial factors that would impact longevity. So if we're talking about longevity risk being not having enough and not having enough money to live the life that you want, the first thing is trying to identify what life it is that you want and how much that life is going to cost. So the first thing I'll do with all clients is a budget. And a lot of people sigh when they hear that and they think, oh no, they're going to restrict our spending, or he's going to tell me I can't go to Starbucks or I can't spend this much on a holiday, etc., etc. It's not really about that. It's more about working out how much life costs, working out how much the life that you want to live costs you, both today and in the future. So something that we'll look at with clients is always, if you didn't work tomorrow, what would you do and what would it cost? So what would your day look like? What would your month look like? What would your year look like? And like I said earlier, for some people that'll be holidays and they'll want to be doing 4, 5, 6 holidays a year. Some people will be happy doing city breaks. Some people will want to travel the world. Some people will want to fly economy class, and some people who want to fly first class. It's all personal preference, but it's very important for people to work out what the life that they want is going to cost. Once you know how much it's going to cost, we can then work out how much you need to save for that to be achievable. And we use sort of complex financial planning software, which we can help use assumptions that look at inflation, investment returns, past performance of the stock market, and we can work out roughly what you'll need to achieve your goals. And everyone's going to have a different number, but effectively the key thing that a financial advisor or financial planner should give you is your number, what you're aiming for. How much do you need to save to get to the point where you need to get to? But the first point of that is always to work out the budget and what life's going to cost. Then the next thing that I suppose is a big issue with longevity is keeping too much money in cash. So cash is brilliant for short term. If you are planning to, I don't know, buy a car, go on holiday, get a renovation on your house in the next few years, all of that stuff, keep all that money in cash. It's very important to have money that you can go and access. But when it comes to longer term, the biggest impact on your financial planning inevitably will be inflation. And inflation is a silent killer. We look at inflation now, it's sitting, I think the last figure I saw was about 7%, 7-8%, but it's been upwards of 10% for the past year or so. Even if you've got your money in a bank account and you're getting 4 or 5% interest at the moment, if inflation's 8%, your money's reducing its purchasing power every year. And for example, for the past 10 or so years when we've had really low inflation, you've been getting maybe 1% returns from banks in cash. Sometimes, I think I looked at one the other day and it was 0.5% was what the interest rate was on the cash account. So if inflation's 8% and you're getting 1% interest, the purchasing power of your money is going down by 7% in that year. And what you need to do is take that and compound it over the length of time that you're going to be retired. And the average retirement these days is 30 to 40 years. And if you have the majority of your wealth in cash, that's going to go down in value every single year. And as you spend it, so say you've got £400,000, for example, and you want to spend 40 grand a year. So you're going to take 10% of that figure and spend it in year one. If the purchasing power is going down by say 7% because you're only getting 1% return in the bank and inflation is 8%, in year one you're down 17%. And it doesn't take a rocket science to work out that that is not sustainable for a 20, 30, 40 year retirement. So for people that have got the majority of the savings in cash, you need to get comfortable with investing, and you need to understand that investing is not a risk in itself, as long as you're investing with the right advice and you're investing in the right things for your objectives, which a good financial advisor and financial planner will help you work out. But the real risk is not doing anything. Investing money is not a risk. The ups and downs of a stock market are not a risk as long as they're managed correctly. To give you an idea, a sort of a balanced investment, so something that would be middle of the road, you would have seen performance in the last 30 years of around 6% a year from something in that ballpark. And that is far and away above what inflation would have been during that time. You maybe would have got 1 or 2% a year in the bank, whereas you would have got 6% plus if the money was invested. And again, that compounds as well. And rather than compounding negatively, that compounds positively. So the first thing I would say about longevity is don't keep too much money in cash. Make sure that you have enough so that you don't need to worry and that you can sleep at night and you've got enough to cover all your bills, and if something went wrong that you would have the money there to be able to fix it. Don't invest any money for something that is a short-term goal. So if you think 5 years or under, so that could be changing a car, moving house, helping the kids with a house deposit, that kind of stuff. Don't invest any of that money because it could be worth less than what you put in because of short-term fluctuations. But anything long-term, 10 years plus, needs to be invested because your money needs to work hard, especially these days. And if you're only going to be relying on a state pension in the future, you need your money to work as hard as possible. So that would be the number one way to avoid longevity risk, would be to keep less money in cash and invest more for long-term goals. But budget's the key one, Jonny. Budget's the real key one. Before you know how much you need and how long your money's going to last, you need to know what your number is. And the only way you can do that is by planning and by working out what it is that you need and what a good retirement looks like. And that'll look different to different people. Your dream rich life will look different to my dream rich life, and it'll look different to for everyone. So it's really important that you try and make the processes as individualized as you can. And although all of my clients have got a financial plan, not one of them is the same. And that's the beauty of my job, and that's why I enjoy it so much, because everyone has got different challenges, different successes, and different definitions of wealth. But for me, my personal goals, like I don't think I'm the kind of person that would be able to retire fully. I think I'll always have to do something. But I know what my number is, and that's something that not a lot of people can say. So I would say, if you're worried about making money last and what you can do to make sure that you can live a fulfilling retirement, is speak to a financial planner. Speak to someone that's either a chartered financial planner or a certified financial planner, and get them to work out what your number is and what you're aiming towards, and it'll eliminate a lot of the worries and stress that you've got around that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to make a lot of sense. Your expertise comes across there. It's really, I think, a worthwhile thing to do for everybody. Think about their long-term future. Think about how long they want to live for, and working back, and how you can prepare your finances for that. It's I'm sure that would take out a lot of stress for many people as well. So.
The other thing as well is there's other things that you can do to help improve longevity. So I will deal with people that perhaps maybe they're at the later end of their working life, and maybe they're in their 60s and they just don't have enough, and they've run out of time. They're not going to work anymore, so they're not going to save anymore, so they don't have the time to build up sufficient resources to make sure the money's going to last the rest of their lives. So that's where we need to look at options then. So that's where I'll help people to work out, okay, well, how can we make this last longer? And that could include things like, maybe you have to spend less. Maybe it's less on holidays than you thought you maybe would have spent. Maybe you can't leave as big a legacy as you would have wanted to. Maybe your children are going to have to understand that your money, you're going to need it, and you won't be able to leave anything for them. And I would have yet to meet a child that would care about anything like that. Most people just want their parents to be happy and live a good life. And if there's anything left over, then that's, happy days. The other thing as well is around things like tax efficiency and being smart about how much money you're taking out of your investments and your cash and portfolios, just to try and make the money last a bit longer. And I suppose there's other things as well that you can do to help legacy. So if you get down into your retirement and there isn't money, there is products available that you can do. So there's things like equity release, lifetime mortgages, where you can take out the equity that you've built up in your home to help you manage the last 10 or 15 or 20 years of your life. So I've seen that work quite well for people that haven't been able to save enough. But the key thing is plan while you're young, and by young I mean 30s, 40s is not too old to start planning for this kind of stuff. Even investing monthly for 5, 10, 15, 20 years will make such a big difference to your retirement. So I suppose that's the biggest, like I say, the biggest risk to clients is running out of money. And as they get older, the pressure on their investments and their cash is going to be greater and greater to last longer. As their pensions change, there's going to be even more pressure on those funds to last, well into people's 80s and 90s. And that can cause sort of significant financial worry. And it's something that, along with health, is very easily fixed by just not ignoring it and by addressing it.
This is it. We said that earlier on. Something I'll touch on really briefly here is something called health span. So we know our lifespan is how many years we are alive, but then our health span is how many of those years that you're alive are you in good health? Are you absent of disease, or you haven't got any age-related disorders, which obviously as we get older, we get more at risk for developing things like Alzheimer's or dementia might become more of a risk as we degenerate, as we age. So really important again, in our 30s and our 40s, taking our health and our deep health more seriously to try to slow the aging process, and reducing that risk and extending our health span to be as close to matching our lifespan as we can make it. So decisions made now, actions taken now, are going to be very important for later on in life.
And it can be small things is the other thing, is not to be overwhelmed or daunted by having to think you have to make huge, overwhelming life changes and you're going to have to uproot everything. A lot of these things can be done pretty straightforward and simply, and started from the bottom. I think that maybe puts people off sorting these things out, is that as humans we're inherently prone to burying our heads in the sand, and a lot of people will kind of just do that and they'll ignore things. And you probably know that men especially are, if they are sick or ill, we are significantly less likely to visit doctors than a woman in a similar situation. That works all across the board. People as humans in general tend to try and bury their heads in the sand, and especially when you're busy and life's busy, it's easy to ignore these things until they creep up on you, and it's almost too late to save the issues, and a lot of things can be easily avoided.
Yes, it's that cumulative effect of small actions that we were mentioning earlier on. So saving small bits of money here and there, and doing small actions that help to eat better, move better, sleep better, they all start to accumulate up.
Yeah, and I find habits are a big thing as well. And once something is a habit, then you forget about it. So in terms of investing, once you're investing money every month, whether it's in a pension or an ISA or whatever it is that you're investing money into, after a few months, like all your direct debits, you'll just ignore it and you'll forget about it. And it'll not be a big deal. And money, you'll forget about it, and it'll just be something that you're used to doing. And I suppose the same could be said for your health and well-being.
Yeah, just things become natural, normal, part of everyday life. You don't think of it as an effort. It's just something that you do.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the key, is how can you get that stuff built into your sort of weekly and monthly habits. Yeah, and repetition. What is the stat about repetition? You have to do something, I think it's 28 times or something.
Yeah, no, there's I was reading about so the habit myths, that there is no magic number. There are a few magic numbers have like 21 days or 66 days to create a habit, but essentially it depends on what the habit is and how long you've been doing it for, that and you're trying to change. So it depends if it's a new thing or an old thing you're trying to change, and how long you've been doing that for, and how often you would do it as well. So some basically there is no magic number for generating a new habit or changing an old one. They're all different. And we as humans, we're all different too. So there isn't a universal magic number.
Yeah. As much as people on social media would like to portray.
Yeah. It's just a sales pitch to kind of encourage to take action, really.
Yeah. What we'll do, we'll wrap it up now, Jonny. But before I do that, I wanted to get one more point from you on longevity, something to summarize what it is that we've been talking about from your point of view in terms of health. What sort of one takeaway or one thing people could do to help them live well for longer? What's a takeaway that people can sort of take away and do now?
Well, we've talked at length throughout here. It's come up a number of times about small actions, and doing many small actions accumulate to a big result. So I suppose I would encourage everybody to think nothing is irrelevant, or nothing's not worth doing. If it's anything that positively affects any component of those of your deep health, then do that. So that's my leaving part is just to consider everything an opportunity, and consider nothing as too irrelevant or meaningless to be doing.
Good. That's a good one. For me, it would be to get excited about the future, and to think about and plan for what type of life that you want to live, whether that's through health or finance. Like Jonny said, small actions can lead to big results. And for me, for one key takeaway, if I was going to say anything to anybody to help improve their financial well-being, is make a budget, make a really honest budget. And if you need a template or a planner, then leave me a message or get in touch, and I can provide you with a spreadsheet to do it. But be really honest with yourself about where your money's going. And once you know that, you can then be really intentional with your spending. There's a lot of us out there, probably myself included, who are spending money on things that they're not passionate about, or there's subscriptions that they've got which they're not using. And people can quite easily find money that's just being wasted. And I would always say to people to spend money on things that you love, and whether that's experiences or family or health and fitness, whatever it is that's important to you and what you love, that's what you should be spending your money on. So yeah, make a budget, figure out how much life costs today, think about how much the life that you want is going to cost in the future, and then you can take it from there, and you can at least have something to aim towards.
Yeah.
And Jonny, if anyone listening wants to get in touch with you, what would you say, or how can they do so?
Well, the best place to find me is I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find me if you search for Dr. Jonny Bloomfield, Jonny, and yeah, and then send me a connection, send me a message. If you want to explore with me how to extend your health span, how to start that snowball rolling. Do you know your numbers? Do you have a good grasp of where your health sits at the minute? Let's do an assessment overall, all aspects of your health. And then let's do some education and some coaching work to see you improve. So yeah, reach out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would be the same. Reach out on LinkedIn. I'm, like Jonny, active enough on there. Drop me a message, even if you just have questions. No question too big or small. No such thing as a stupid question when it comes to money or health. Me and Jonny would be happy to help no matter what your question is. So thanks very much for joining me, Jonny. Hopefully chat to you soon.
Yep, see you soon, Matt. Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.